This is the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we have conversations with everyday martial artists about their histories and how martial arts influence their daily lives. You are listening to the abbreviated version of this podcast, which is the first 20 minutes or so of the show. Please consider supporting the show by subscribing on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/malmag, and for about the price of one coffee shop coffee per month, you can get access to 4 new podcasts each month, 1 week before their YouTube release dates. You also have access to all of our existing shows, which at this point is about 100 hours of shows for you to enjoy. Individual shows can be purchased at our Gumroad page. That is malmag.gumroad.com. If you're looking for some sticks for FMA, some cool t-shirts, or even a course on Dos Manos, have a stop by martialartslifestylemagazine.com and click on the store tab or on the courses tab for that course. This week I get on Zoom and I talk to my fellow Californian, Marty Zananovich. We talk about his history in martial arts and how he got into training the infamous art of Kenpo, and with some pretty amazing people. And we also talk about how he got into the Filipino martial arts and silat with the legendary Dan Inosanto, and much more. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and today I've got someone I've been hoping to get on for a long time and actually pursuing in my original list of people that I put when I came up with the idea of a podcast. And this gentleman has, I think, been around the Inosanto Academy for at least the whole time I have, if not most of the time. And he's got a really interesting background, and he's one of those guys that Guro teases about his age all the time. And the physical condition he is in for such and what have you, and we'll talk all about that. But I want you guys to welcome Marty Zananovich, if I got it right.
You have it perfect. Thanks, Tim. I really appreciate you having me on
absolutely.
The podcast.
Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you
coming in, and taking the time with me. You're what I used to call the breakfast crew. The crew I used to see down at Nichols, you and Mike and
John.
John, yeah, exactly.
Yep. We were there all the time. It was those are some great days. They really were.
Yeah. It's kind of back in the days when it was like train, go eat.
Yes. That was always a big part of it. We'd start out with a good breakfast, and then God only knows what happened after that. It was always fun, and you go home feeling like you accomplished something. It was great.
Exactly. It's funny. I almost dare to say that you learn as much, if not more, in those sort of conversations over the food.
You really do. And I always had Mr. Parker would tell us, through my teachers, Mr. Labonte, Mr. Kelly, that not every lesson is going to be physical. You're going to be learning a lot just from the talks that you have. And he says, take mind of it, because you will learn something.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a pretty decent tradition of that. I mean, I'm sure that goes back before, but, Guro Dan talks about them training in Chinatown and then going out for juk afterwards and sitting and, listening to Bruce Lee. And I'm sure Bruce Lee did that with his teachers,
Absolutely. I think that's just part of the tradition that I enjoy carrying on, because I like to eat too. I like to train, I like to eat.
Like eating probably as much as I like martial arts.
Well, yeah, I'd agree with that. I enjoy the food and the camaraderie.
Exactly. Well, let's go back to the beginning, as we do in this show all the time. Tell me how you got started in martial arts, and with who and how and all that good stuff.
Well, when I first started, I started out when I was about 13 years old, and I started out in wrestling. And then I took judo also in the small town right outside of Fresno, which is Dinuba. And I did that most of my high school years. And then right next door to where my mom and dad lived, there was a school that opened up, and it was a Kenpo school. And I knew nothing about Kenpo. I knew nothing about anything other than they were punching somebody and kicking people. And it looked pretty cool from my perspective. And the judo and the wrestling was always fun, but I was needing a little bit more to add to it. Didn't know what exactly it was, but I ventured into the school and come to find out it was a Labounty lineage school. And Steve Labounty was under Mr. Parker directly, along with Tom Kelly. Old names, but Guru knows them well.
Yeah.
And they were tough as nails. They ran it like an old military type structure, which was good at the time because I needed it. My discipline was lacking, to say the least. And it was a whole new genre for me to learn. I stayed there through my black belt, and then I migrated over after a big seminar in Tucson with Mr. Parker, where he went through all the forms 1 through 6. And I knew at that point in time I needed more to my training. Not that what I had was bad, because it was excellent. It gave me a foundational structure second to none. But I needed a little bit more of the technical aspects of it. And then I migrated over to Mr. Planis, Richard Huck Planis, and I've been there to date. In fact, we had him down at the academy, I think about a month or two ago. He wanted to come in and say hi to Guro Dan.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Didn't I do some photos? Yeah, okay.
Yes. You did photos of him, and he was. I had the guys from Germany down here with us too, so it was fun. It was just a blast. He enjoyed getting back out there, and the next day, he came over to the house, and I had my garage set up like a dojo, and he sat there watching, and he was getting up, getting involved in it. He's a kid at heart, when he comes to learning, and it was fun, and it's so fun. He's smart enough to know if we get into a position that he's smart. He's a whiz in the Kenpo world, and he's had lessons prior with Guro Dan when he was teaching out of the Pasadena school. And he'd always tell me, he says, okay, if you haven't got an answer, he says, go ask Guro Dan. So it's he wants the correct answers too, and he has the utmost respect for Guru, which all of us do.
Yeah, I would think, this conversation's come up a bit, and I've always kind of said something. This was not my original thought, but it was there. And then I think Chris Harley is the guy who really kind of pointed it out. And I went, yeah, you're right. And there's something very interesting about Dan Inosanto, and that is, when you think of most people, and I think Ed Parker actually falls into this too, which is kind of cool. But when you think of most martial artists beyond the two of them, you tend to think of them in terms of who they fought, who they've beat, who's beaten them, whose ass can they kick, this kind of thing. Exactly. That is not the way you think of Dan Inosanto, and it's not even really the way you would think of Ed Parker either. But at the same time, because that seems to be such a measuring stick for so much of the rest of the martial art population, as far as like big names, it's interesting how probably the most, I'd say anybody who's legit does not question the ability of those guys at all.
I totally agree. I've been blessed, and a lot of it is training with other people that Mr. Labounty knew or Mr. Kelly or Planis knew that would hook me up with it. Whether it be I had the privilege of training with Wally J for a little bit. That was an experience all to itself. I never want to put my finger up like that again. I learned that was one of the most painful things. And he started asking me halfway through, it was a 3-day seminar, point my finger. I said, no, sir. And his wife came up to me. She says, you're very lucky. My fingers are bent backwards and everything. But he was gentle. He was kind, fluent, and great. One other person that really sticks in my mind, and there's many of them, was Mr. Robert Halliburton. He was one of the great, and he was a fighter. There was no doubt in the Shotokan system. And he was studying with Kanazawa Sensei. And he had me come over. And I had been studying with a friend of mine from Malaysia, and he did Thai kickboxing, which I did nothing about until I got an elbow across the chops and a knee in my gut, and I learned real quick.
It's pretty convincing, those.
Oh, yeah. Well, I punched him pretty hard in the chest. I said, sorry, and he looked at me, and he broke in English. He said, oh, sorry, too late. And then here come the elbows and the knees, and I'm thinking, holy moly. I got an education real quick. We were brown belts at the time.
Sorry, too late.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And he did Tai Chi also. So I had a bit of experience there. Getting back to the Kanazawa Sensei, Mr. Halliburton had me come in because he was doing a seminar there. Kanazawa Sensei was, and he was doing Shotokan, and he was doing the differences to soften up their Shotokan with Tai Chi, and he had me do push hand with him. And I tell you what, that man, he was small in stature, but powerful, and he could read your energy. He was like a guru reading energy. You know, his Guro Dan. I mean, just could second nature to him. And it was an experience and a half. And he'd get a little smile on his face, and he'd say, "You ready?" And I'm thinking, "Oh God, here we go. I'm going to go sailing here," you know. But he was controlled. It was good. But it was an education for me in that too. A lot of the sticks when I first started with that, Mr. Planis taught Huck Planis, my Kenpo teacher, taught me some of the stick introduction. Then he had me go study with his brother, Ed Planis. Ed Planis was an instructor under Estelila, Ramiro
okay.
Estelila in the Copper One system. So that was interesting. I stayed there for several years with them, along with my Kenpo. I never quit my Kenpo, and I still do it today. And then in the 90s, late 90s, I asked Mr. Planis if I could go study with Guro Dan. And he says, by all means, you know. So I started in late 99 with Guro Dan, what was with Mike Weiss and with John Spezzano. And that was in the days that you had to earn your apprentice guruship before you got to go into Guro Dan's class. So
okay. That was, you were at the very tail end of that.
Yeah, I was right at the tail end of it.
Yeah.
And right when I reached that pinnacle, it changed. And I thought, okay, well, that was cool. I got to taste, you know, what it was like, you know, prior to that. And it was a good experience for me. And I have no regrets at all. And then also trained with Mark Denny with the Dog Brothers for about 2.5 years. And that was an experience. That opened my eyes to a lot of things. And really gave me a vast understanding of, you know, get out of the way. They're going to knock you out.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It was so funny when I first walked in there. Guru Mark was saying, "Okay, I want you guys to get, you know, sparring equipment." So I'm thinking, okay, get all this hockey gear. So I got the hockey helmets, gear, and I walked in that next Saturday, and he looked at me and he said, "I thought you were a tough Kenpo guy." And I'm thinking, oh God, right to the heart. You know, everybody's having these fencing helmets on, the volleyball pads. I'm thinking, oh God, okay. I lost that and got the the proper equipment, and then it was a good experience. He taught me a lot of things that I wouldn't have had the privilege of having, and I really enjoyed it. You know, at the time, it was tough training. I mean, it was really tough training, especially after class over at the dunes and in the park. Yeah, but it was good. It was really good. And then more of my training comes along with, you know, as many seminars as I can take with other people. I was blessed to train with Nene Gabakayat for several years, and that one changed my perspective of the stick and getting a better understanding. And then he had us go work with Eddie Valise one Saturday, and came in from the Philippines.
Oh, that was, I remember back. That was just before COVID, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. Maybe more. I lose track.
Right.
But that was an experience.
Right before COVID. Yeah.
It was funny because all of us were sitting there after we got through with them, and we lifted up our shirts, and on the same side, we all had the same mark from him from his stick smacking us there. I still have that picture somewhere, but it was it was an experience. And then the magic show that Bobby Tabuada put on, and getting to work with him at a time, it was, that guy's something else.
Yeah.
That was eye-opening. And then of course Guru brings in so many talented people into the academy that has made an influence on me. You know, Sifu Fong, all of them. They just they're so influential. You know, and it's what you stated earlier. They could say something to you, and you're going to pick it up, and that seed is planted. They may not be the one putting the water on it, but they gave you that light to hold up and see that, you know what?
Right.
Here's the path.
Right.
stick with it and you'll gain tremendous amounts. And, and I love Guru's statement, you have to be the best doctor for you to know what you need for your body. And
Right.
I've taken that advice and I still take it every day, that I'm down there, and it rings through my thoughts, my heart, and my training. I've adjusted. I keep thinking that I'm 21 again. I can do, unlimited jump spinning hook kicks, and I'm good
Uh,
for one or two. John always always puts me on the spot. He goes, "Can you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, one or two, but not like I used to."
that's funny. I'm glad I'm not the only one that's suffering that. Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, one, not that
Yeah,
great, but there it is.
and we don't want to talk about the day after.
No, and 2 days after, even I'm
Yeah.
so blinded by the fact that it takes 2 days for soreness to set in now that I get up that next day going, yeah, it's all great, and then the second day I'm like, oh my god, what did I do?
Exactly. Exactly. I bought a step up box, for my son. He was doing Kenpo for a while and had him a little bit of Filipino martial arts, and now he's doing jujitsu. So I'm having him do these step ups and down. And
Yeah,
he started doing it. I had him just blazing it, and then I did it. And he goes, "How come you're going so slow?" I said, "You know what? Go to the other room." I said, "This is my speed. Leave me alone right
yeah,
now."
yeah. First of all, I'm twice your height. It's like
Exactly.
when I'm trying to follow push-ups in Little Dragons class. If like Preston's counting them out, kid's 8 years old, has got short arms. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're like, come on,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
I got 3 times the distance to travel that you got.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The muscle mass, everything else is different, guys. Give us a break.
Exactly.
We're still here, though.
Exactly. Yeah. No plans to go anywhere. Um,
Correct.
well, you said something really interesting about, planting the seeds. And I think, I've got decades in at this point, and you've got probably a couple more decades than me. And there's something really interesting about the seeds. And that is, are you still getting those moments where something goes bing and you're like, oh my God, that's what they told me 30 years ago. Now I get it.
All the time. All the time. you know, we were sitting there, and I was in Sweden, and it was about 2 months ago, and I was sitting with Mr. Planis, and we were dissecting a form 4. And, I asked him a question. That's one part of it, because it was matching up to different angles, and I was trying to get a better understanding. And he looked at me, he says, "Did you forget that?" I said, "No, I don't know. I think so." I said, "You probably didn't use the right super glue on me when you gave it to me the first time." I said, but yes, I do have the aha moments all the time. And I was talking to Ed Parker Jr. one day, and his dad was still alive at the time, and he made the Kenpo Encyclopedia, and he said the equation on the front of it. He said they did it for a reason. He said so many black belts believe they have the complete system and every answer there is. And he said he asked his dad one day, he
Mm,
says, "Do you have all the answers to the system?" He said, "No." He says, "How can you? It's unlimited." He says, "The energy changes, the emotions are going to change." He says, "You just don't know." He says, "You'll never have it all." So that's when he put that big equation out there, and basically it goes to infinity. You'll never have all the answers. And I love what Guru stated. You have to be several steps ahead in your flowing. But
right.
so many times, and I jump over to Nene now. He says, don't anticipate, just react," which is easier
Right.
for these guys like that. They react, than
Right.
we're trying to get every little nuance of the movement down, and really get it ingrained in our muscle memory. So it
Right.
is, second nature, but there's always something new. And I think, speaking to your aha moments, the aha moments, they're good, but they give you that moment to think, and
Right.
that
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And
that better understanding.
then there's the years after hours of trying to put that light bulb now into practice, right?
Absolutely. And and I keep going back to Guru sayings, but they're so meaningful. And forgive me if I repeat myself on it, but it's the chasing the technique. So many times,
Yes.
and I see it in several of the arts, and it can be in our calling, it can be anything. Kempo. It seems that's my core one. So many times I see people chasing the technique and trying to do it as written versus
Right.
as how it flows. And if they would listen to one of the old sayings of Mr. Parker, no different than Guro Dan, you know, those are ideas. Take it, work it. And he says, things will change. And he says, your ability to change up and alter are going to be the
Right.
biggest components that you utilize if you get a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, you know what? I think it's an easy, and I don't mean lazy as an easy, but I think it's an easy, mistake maybe to fall into, or an easy trap to fall into with that, because I think like anything else with us human beings that we get into, the more you invest in something, the more you got to dig in and say, this is right, because I've invested so much and I can't be wrong, because it's such a blow to your ego. And, you know, so we're kind of misinterpreting the, what we say, the platform that we've been given for the actual dive, you know, and,
Absolutely.
and that's, you know, that's, in one way it's really scary, but it's freeing. It's the, some of the, I think, the freedom that Bruce Lee was talking about, which, you know, is more of understanding these lines that we're creating actually don't exist. That,
so true.
yeah, these aren't different things. These are all the same thing. I liken it to meatloaf. You know, in my family, my aunt, my grandmother, and my mother all made meatloaf differently.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all meatloaf and it was all good. And I'm not about to officially go on record and tell you who I thought was the best.
Of course not. No, especially with family. Don't do it.
Exactly. Well, I guess my mom and my aunt and my grandma had passed away, so I'm going to say Aunt Marge, your meatloaf is the best.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play safe.
Yeah, you have to. My sister did that one time to be ornery with my grandma. My grandmother was 102 years old and witty as heck. And she looked at my sister and she goes, "Who makes better rice pilaf, your
Oh boy.
mom or me?" And she looked at my mom. She looked at my grandma. She goes, "You, grandma." And my mom just started spitting fire. And that was so funny. My sister got up and ran.
Yeah, she's like, "Who's the closest to hitting me immediately?" And then
Yeah,
who can I get away from? Yeah.
exactly. So no, I have total compassion and understanding
Now
your the meatloaf.
that's a really interesting dish. So, rice pilaf, does that come from your family, like deep trove of recipes?
Well, you know it does. My dad's side's Croatian, and my mom's side is Armenian.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/malmag and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Marty Zananovich. Coming up next week, we sit down here in the home studio in Santa Monica, California, with Midwestern martial artist Anthony Adams. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabi Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available, with new t-shirt designs and more products coming soon. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the events calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Jackal Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.